AI and music. We're at some kind of inflection point at the moment with regard to AI. It's moving ahead in leaps and bounds. Neural networks, including large language models, LLMs, have made so many things possible now that we might have thought were decades away, and we're struggling to keep up with it all. The music industry is one area that's facing some really challenging issues. Just recently, two software programs, Suno version 3 and Udio, have taken the AI generation of music to levels that, before they came on the scene, we probably thought were years, if not decades away. No, it's here now, today. These software programs, Suno and Udio, can, right here and now, for free, generate entire songs from scratch in a multitude of genres based on a few lines of input from you. And can we even tell the difference? Even many years back, in the 1980s, David Cope, a music professor, developed software called Experiments in Musical Intelligence, EMI, which was able to emulate the works of classical composers. At one event, the audience was asked to listen to three pieces of music. One was actually a piece by Bach. One was composed by someone called Dr. Larson, who was a lover of Bach. And one was composed by this software, this EMI. The audience was then asked to pick which was which. They decided that Dr. Larson's piece was the one that was computer generated, and that the computer generated music was actually the genuine Bach. This was back in the 1980s. We're light years ahead of that now. AI has made huge advances in a whole range of areas. For example, DeepMind, a Google company, has developed AI programs that are able to teach themselves complex games such as chess and Go completely from scratch. In earlier versions, they trained software using millions of human games. This soon enabled the software to defeat all other chess software and Go grandmasters. They went a step further, though, with AlphaZero. They didn't train this new software by showing it games. They simply gave it the basic rules and parameters of the game and let it train itself. The untrained neural network played millions of games against itself in a process of trial and error called reinforcement learning. At first it played randomly, but over time it learned from wins and losses and draws to adjust the parameters of its neural network, making it more likely to choose advantageous moves in the future. Within 9 hours, the software was able to beat anyone or anything at chess, including all the previous chess programs which have been able to defeat chess grandmasters. Go is a much more complicated game, but it mastered it completely in 13 days. This software didn't just win, but came up with completely new strategies in both games that had never been used by anyone before. And it was winning using those strategies. It was genuinely innovative. As far as music is concerned, there are a whole lot of issues that come up. For instance, if these programs, Suno and Udio, are training their software using existing work by human artists, are they infringing copyright? I think this will be battled out very soon in the courts. My feeling, though, is that the software will win that battle. After all, don't all musical artists train themselves by listening to the music of other artists? I think copyright will only apply here in the same way that it does in the all-human world, i.e. when something that's AI generated is too similar to something else. Another question is, can AI generated music itself be copyrighted? According to the University of South Australia, the answer to this is no. But in that case, if no one actually owns this music, who gets the royalties? If no one gets the royalties, there's going to be no incentive to create this music. Then there's a question, of course, of the impact of this AI-generated music on actual human artists. Will it drive them? Many of whom are already struggling to make a living. Will it drive them completely out of the music industry? The answer is almost certainly yes. These are really huge and important questions, and it's going to be a turbulent couple of years in the music industry. But what I'm more interested in today is something rather more personal and philosophical. What is my relationship to this music? How do I feel about it? How you answer this question for yourself will depend upon what purpose music serves in your life. If for you the purpose of music is simply to entertain, to provide rhythms to dance to, lyrics to sing along to, then probably your relationship to AI music won't be very different from your relationship to human music. In electronic dance music, for example, there's not a lot of human input anyway. The more techno it is, the less human it is. It's kind of in the word. On many contemporary recordings, no one is actually playing any musical instruments. The instruments are synthesized. The music and melody are programmed rather than played. If you don't care that the voice you're listening to is not the actual voice of the artist, but only a pitch-corrected version of their voice, why should you care if the entire voice, the entire song, is AI generated? In other words, the direct human input into music has been steadily declining for decades now. Isn't an entirely AI-generated form of music just the next logical step? I guess in all pre-AI music, though, there was still some degree of human input, something we might call creativity. At the very least, an idea, a concept. Now, with these new AI music generators, that's reduced to a short line of input. Even so, many people still won't care about this. For them, music is just entertainment. I'm honestly not sure how to respond to this, because for me, music is not just entertainment. It can be, of course, but songs that are just that for me are also not particularly important to me. They're ephemeral and easily replaced. They're audio snacks with no nutritional value. But maybe that's all many people want. So, if the music I like most of all is not just ephemeral entertainment, what is it? What is it to me? I usually have music playing in the background, and earlier this morning Spotify played for me Riptide by Vance Joy. I can honestly say that I have no deep emotional response to that song at all. I might find my foot tapping, I may even at times sing along, but mostly it's just a vaguely pleasant background noise. Then it played Greedy by Tate McRae. I have even less of a response to that. It pretty much fades away from my awareness. Of course, if this was playing at a party, because, I'm such a party animal, I might bob along to it, but it could be pretty much any song with a similar beat. It could, let's be honest, be an AI-generated song if that was its only purpose. It would really make no difference at all. But other songs touch me much more deeply. They make me stop and actually listen. They become foreground rather than background. And of course, there's an entire spectrum between these two extremes. But clearly, the music that means the most to me is the music that makes me actually stop and listen. It's not necessarily the music that creates earworms. And it's not always the same feature of a song that makes me stop and listen. It may be the melody, it may be the vocal performance, or the rhythm, or a particular musical element. But something grabs me. So, what if I happen to hear an AI-generated song, but I don't know it's AI-generated, and it grabs me in this way? It makes me stop and listen. It forces its way into the foreground. Clearly it's touching me in some way, connecting with me in some way. I'm interacting with it at some deeper level. Then I discover it's actually AI generated. What happens then? Does my response to it change? Does it no longer do to me what it did before? And if not, why not? If my relationship to the music changes when I discover that it's AI, does that mean that my relationship was not to the music itself? Does it mean that my response was not to the actual music? Was my response perhaps to the feeling that something was being communicated to me by another person, that the music was the medium for some human-to-human contact? Shit, I don't know. Was this AI software communicating with me? Okay, let's take a breath here. First of all, this music, even though it's generated from scratch, is not completely devoid of human input. This software is trained by listening to millions of examples of human-generated music. It is, in fact, at some level, undeniably human. And I think that remains true even if the software is only imitating human creativity. It is imitating human creativity. So perhaps what I'm actually responding to is this human element of the song. There's no way, for instance, that this software was ever dumped by a lover or enjoyed a ride in the country or fell out with a friend. These are very human experiences. The vocal it creates, even though no human voice is actually singing, is nevertheless based on human voices. It tries to reproduce the sounds of a human voice, including the emotional content of that voice. No human is playing any actual instruments in this song, but the sounds being generated are based on actual human performances. If it wasn't doing this, we probably wouldn't respond to it at all. So even this AI-generated music is firmly rooted in human experience and behaviour. Of course, based on what AI has been able to do in games like chess and Go, at some point, perhaps even now, this software may be able to actually innovate. But if this innovation drifts too far from its human roots, we probably won't be very interested in it. As innovative as AI may be in chess and Go, it nevertheless remains within the rules and parameters of those games. Else it ceases to be chess or Go. But are there similar rules and parameters when it comes to music? Maybe, but they're much more difficult to specify, they're much fuzzier. But although these parameters are difficult to define, I suspect that if AI moves too far outside these parameters, we won't consider it to be music anymore. It won't interest us. Much like the more recent creative initiatives of Bjork, for example. Whatever that may be, I'm not sure that it's recognisable as music anymore. But I can't deny feeling a bit cheated when I mistake AI music for human music. I feel cheated even when I realise that I'm not hearing the human artist's real voice because of auto-tune or pitch correction. In the case of AI, the software only seems to be imitating human experience. It certainly hasn't lived it. But then, when Joe Strummer and Mick Jones of The Clash wrote a song, the first line of which is, "My daddy was a bank robber," we won't necessarily feel cheated if it turns out that his daddy wasn't, in fact, a bank robber. Nevertheless, we can assume that the human experience and feelings described elsewhere in the song are genuine, even though they're not based on those particular experiences. They're based on other experiences. I can't assume that with AI. It's not real. It's fake. And because of that, I feel cheated. It's as though I've discovered that a friend is not who they say they are. My relationship to that friend and my relationship to the AI song is damaged, perhaps irreparably. Perhaps at some point AI will begin to write songs about its own experiences. Maybe the music will become genuine then, but perhaps not very relatable.